So you're wanting to sell your investment property, but you're wanting to know, should we sell it vacant or with a tenant in place? What are your options? Let's talk about them. First of all, is the lease coming to an end? Is it month to month, or is it long term? If it is long term and you're wanting to sell the property, you're going to be restricting yourself to primarily investors, unless you can find a buyer who is willing to either wait for a long time for settlement or take over that tenant, which there's not too many of those around. In Victoria, a lot of investors have left the market, and whilst this will change at some point, you will be restricting the buyer market to investors, which isn't ideal. The other thing to consider, that when you're selling to an investor, that it's more or less just a numbers game for them, and they won't have much of an emotional connection to the home. Therefore, they're unlikely to pay a premium price. So, long story short, if you really do want to avoid selling the property that is rented long term if you can. Now, most landlords will look at selling as the lease either comes to an end or it's vacant. Now, let's look at the pros and cons, and I'll give you a bit of a recommendation depending on your situation at the end. Selling with a tenant in place. The pros. If you've got an investor interested, then obviously there's a tenant already in place. If presented well, the home won't need staging as it would if it was vacant, and therefore that'll save you a little bit of money. And the other thing is you'll continue to generate income through the rental while the property's for sale and awaiting settlement. The cons, if the home isn't presented well, then it can have a huge impact on the eventual sale price. Sometimes getting access to do touch-ups or renovations can be difficult whilst it's occupied. Access for buyer inspections and opens can be limited. In some areas, including Victoria, the tenant will receive compensation for each inspection that you do. Now, which way should you go? This really depends on the home and how well the tenant presents the home and how easy the tenant is to work with. There are plenty of fantastic tenants out there that are easy to work with and take real pride in their home, even if they don't actually own it. If this is the case, for most homes, it would be worth considering selling with the tenant in place. Once sold and prior to settlement, the purchaser can then elect if they want to move in at settlement or keep the tenant on in place. Now, the home might not present quite as well as if it was vacant and staged, and therefore selling price might be a little bit lower, but on the flip side, you won't miss out on rental income and have to spend money on staging and touch-ups, which could easily cost above $10,000 in total. If the tenant does present the home poorly, or if it's a high-end home, or the home does need a little bit of a facelift, new carpets, a bit of paint and a few things like that, then you're better off selling once the tenant has left. Now, you'll naturally have the home empty for a period of time and have to spend some money on staging and some touch-ups. So there will be a bit of a cost involved, but there will be a huge uplift on price. Now, before making a decision, there's a few things you want to consider. There is legislation which dictates how much notice you must give a tenant when giving them notice to move out or putting the home up for sale. So make sure you do research and give yourself enough time. Also, get some advice from a real estate agent as to where they see the value of the property as is, as well as an estimate of the value once the home has been staged if vacant. Now go away, crunch the numbers in both circumstances and basically see what works for you. But as a rule of thumb, again, if the tenant presents it really well, if it's a middle of the range home, then by all means, if it's coming to an end of a lease, consider having the tenant in there. If the home isn't presented that well or it does need a bit of a facelift, it's probably worthwhile selling the property vacant. I hope you found this helpful. If there's any questions, note them down below, happy to answer.